there is a competition going on between the top 3 DEXs in Polkadot. Development activity is going up, staking is going up, treasury proposals and grants are going up, chain fees show something unexpected. We will learn how much value is being locked in DeFi in the Polkadot ecosystem. We will learn that Singular dominates the NFT marketplace, and I saw a little bit of a surprise in WASM. Hi everyone, welcome to Edison Bob. Today we're going to talk about the Polkadot deep dive report for the first quarter of 2023 from the Dotinsights team. So the sub-wallet team, Dotinsights team, is creating this quarterly report that gives you an insight into what is actually going on in Polkadot on a data-driven basis. So you don't need to rely any longer on any marketing. You can look at the actual facts at what is going on, and this makes this report very valuable and gives you an edge in understanding the truth about the Polkadot ecosystem, which chains are successful, which protocols are successful, and it just gives you more stuff to think about and to process when you're making your decisions. So let's take a look in. The sub-wallet team is working on this report for a year now. So this is the 4th report that they've been producing, and they are constantly working to improve it. So what they've recently added is this key takeaway section for the latest report, and also the table of contents. So you can quickly jump to the area that is most relevant for you. And today I've picked out a few of the charts that I want to discuss with you. We are going to see basically 3 major areas. We see an ecosystem overview showing insights into the development activity, how many grants there are going on, what is going on with the parachains. Then the second part is the DeFi activity, and the third part is the NFT activity. So first chart I've picked out for you is the number of developers. And so the number of developers is important because it gives you an insight into, is there actually development effort ongoing, or have developers decided to move on to other ecosystems or other ventures. But we are fairly good equipped here because we can see a rise from about 120 developers at the beginning of the chapter to 180 developers that are actively contributing to the core repositories of Polkadot. So this is not even the ecosystem, this is just the core repositories that make up Substrate, Polkadot, and the core features. So 180 people just working on the core repositories, and I think the numbers speak for themselves. If you look at the blue lines here, you can see 100 commits on many days, and in most days 80 commits just going on. So there's basically something happening on every day. You cannot see a single day. Okay, you can see 2 days here, maybe they were on retreat, but other than that, you can see that there's something going on every day of the week. Similarly, here we can see the number of repositories being created since 2015 over the whole ecosystem, and you can just see that there are new repositories being created every quarter with a peak in at the peak of the bull market. But you can see that still today 300 repositories are being created every quarter. So this is about 3 repositories per day, 3 people every day thinking about some new project that they could build in the Polkadot ecosystem and creating new repositories. Okay, so this was development activity. Now we're going into staking and what is going on with the tokens. And we can see here, this is fairly stable. We can see a little bit of an increase in the staking ratio from 44% at the beginning of the quarter to 47%. But all else, this is fairly stable. We don't see any big unstaking or big staking event, not a lot of volatility. Stability is what we want here because it ensures the security of the ecosystem, and this is what we're getting. Where we see new adoption coming in is in the nomination pools. And so nomination pools is a feature that allows you to stake with a lot less hassle because you're basically outsourcing the complete complexity of where you should nominate and so on to other people, nomination pool managers. And so you basically just staking with a nomination pool, and that's everything you have to do. I recently made a video about how you can stake in a nomination pool in under 3 minutes if you know the right people, if you know that you can trust them. and you can definitely watch the video. But what we can see here is that 3,500 people at the beginning of the quarter, and now over 8,300 people participating in nomination pools, so more than doubled. And if we look at the blue lines here, we see 860,000 DOT at the beginning, 3 million DOT at the end of the quarter. So the amount of staked tokens has more than tripled. So we can see a fairly good adoption of this new feature. It makes it easier for everyone, and we can see that the success speaks for itself. Another interesting chart on the token front here is what is the distribution of tokens between whales and other accounts. In this context here, whales have been defined as accounts that hold more than 0.1% of all the tokens, and we can see that this is 67% in Polkadot and 71% in Kusama, which actually means there are more whales in Kusama than in Polkadot. I would have expected a more decentralized distribution in Kusama, but it's actually the other way around. We can see more decentralization happening on Polkadot, but we have to say it's fairly equal. And maybe one important thing there is, that's it. So basically, but it's like a fairly similar distribution. So this was a token holdership. Now we're entering a new chapter, and that is the chapter of what is going on with the treasury grants. So Kusama and Polkadot both use their on-chain treasury to invest in different things, and as you can see here, it's different things. So Kusama is investing in infrastructure, software development, and then here a few similarly sized pies of the chart: community events and outreach, marketing activities, bounties, liquidity provision. While what we can see on Polkadot is a different picture. 3/4 of the stuff goes into bounties, so we don't even see in this chart what is going on. And then also big parts here are public infrastructure and network security and operations. But if that is not enough for you, there is a tip for you. You can use .treasury.com. It's a dedicated website. It's basically a treasury explorer, governance explorer, that allows you to look into all the treasury proposals that have been made, tips, bounties that have been paid out. How is the composition of the income? How is the composition of the output? And which finders have found the most good content, who received the most tokens. So all of this is available for you in .treasury.com. But this gives a fairly interesting overview because it already raises a few questions of where I could ask myself questions into what do I want to look deeper into. Last chart on the treasury grant section here. And this is Kusama specific, but we will see something similar in Polkadot soon. So Kusama has transitioned to a completely decentralized on-chain governance, have moved away from the council, and now everything is handled by OpenGov, Open Governance, or how it is sometimes called Governance 2.0. And this means that only token holders are making all the decisions. And to make this a little bit easier, there have been different tracks created. So there is a big spender track, a medium spender track, a small spender track. There is tracks about referendums and all kinds of other administrative stuff. But what we can see is that the most proposals have been made on the big spender and the medium spender track. And I think what is important to hear and good for all of us to hear, not everything that gets proposed also gets accepted. We see that 14 versus 11 proposals have been approved and 11 proposals have not been approved on the big spender track. So if you're coming in and you want to have a big amount of money, you actually need to deliver something solid and something that the community and the token holders really want. Community has been more permissive on the medium spender track, so you can see 22 to 6 approved versus not approved. So three proposals get approved, one proposal gets rejected on the medium spender track, and everything else is interesting. Maybe the number 3 here is the whitelisted caller. This is also interesting. So there is no longer a council, there's no longer a technical committee, but there is still the fellowship. And what the fellowship does is it is a group of core developers of Polkadot, Kusama, Substrate. This can be developers from Parity, this can be developers from other parachains, and together they are forming the fellowship, and the only power that they have is they can make it a little bit easier to submit a proposal. So while on Kusama, usually if you want to propose something on the root track where you can do everything, you would have to deposit $100,000 in value on the proposal. While if you can get the support of the fellowship and a lot of the core developers actually support whatever you're proposing, you only have to deposit $10,000 and you can submit it on the whitelisted caller track, right? And we can see that people are making use of this. 27 proposals in a single quarter. This is about one proposal every 3 to 4 days. So this is a lot of the core developers, the most gigabrain people in the ecosystem, or the most people that are very deep into Substrate, and they are spending time at least every 3 days looking at proposals and accepting something. Yes, okay. So this was the on-chain proposals. Now we're looking at off-chain proposals, and this is a fairly simple chart because it just says number goes up. So this is the Web3 Foundation. This is not on-chain, this is off-chain. It's its own legal entity. It makes its own rules. It has its own money, so it can do what it wants. But the intention, of course, is to support Web3, to support the Polkadot ecosystem with funding for several projects that add different bits and pieces, open source software, different things. And we can just see they have been grinding along. They have been working and submitting grants, allowing grants for different projects. So number go up. In this case, I guess this is a good thing because they're also making their own decisions and they will want to support projects that are actually meaningful. Okay, so these were grants. We're staying with tokens, but it's no longer about grants. It's about who is holding how many tokens and on which chain. So basically, where are the holders? How many holders are there per chain? What you can see here is that there are two big front runners. This is Polkadot and it is Moonbeam. So Moonbeam, the smart contract chain, is having 1 million accounts. Polkadot is having 1 million accounts. Now, this is not 1 million individuals because usually, for example, when you deposit to a centralized exchange, you have this pass-through account, and there are all kinds of reasons to create accounts, but still it is an impressive number if you consider Moonbeam has been around for 1.5 years and it has 1 million accounts on its register. Nodal, also interesting, and then we can see chains like A-Star, Akala, Parallel also. No, not here. Parallel is not here. Parallel is, I guess, in the next chart. And these are the chains that are having more than 100,000 accounts. And then you can see all the newcomers coming up here, gearing up. Yeah. So, XCM activity. XCM activity is about economic activity. So this is not about a single parachain, but a parachain interacting with other parachains via XCM calls, via messages, for example, and most usually to transfer value and transfer tokens. So important here to consider is the yellow line. This tells you how many channels there are open. And I think overall you can divide the number by 2 because channels are going in 2 directions. And so Karura, for example, I would say is connected to 22 parachains. And then you can see a few over 20. And then the blue and the red chart is how many transactions are going in, how many transactions are going out. This is not about the volume, this is not about the size, it's just the number of transactions going back and forth. And you can see the clearly the Karura, Bifrost is also big, Akala is big, Moonbeam is big, Parallel is big. And then everyone else is coming here. I think what is important to say about XCM is XCM is tough to learn. It's a complex environment, but considering that all these chains are starting to interact and we're just seeing the precursor of what is going to come, is a really nice sign because you can expect that these chains, once they're starting their economic activity, a lot of stuff will be going on. A few interesting pieces here, or at least one here, is State Mint. So it's a common good parachain. USDT is hosted there, Mark is hosted there. USDT is having 27 channels open, but not too much traffic yet. So I would expect that USDT as a stable coin would create more traffic. So let's see about how this will develop in the future. This chart, if you want to spend some time here, tells you how is the traffic between two parachains going on. So you can definitely visit the report here and see which are the chains that have the most economic activity going on between them. We can see a few leaders: Moonbeam to Akala on Polkadot and Bifrost to Karura on Kusama. And then there's also Kintsugi. We're also seeing Parallel, but these seem to be the leaders. Okay, this chart here surprised me actually a little bit. So what you can see here is the total chain fees. So how much fees have been collected on those chains. And I didn't expect any of those three. We can see Kala here, we can see A-Star here, we can see BitCountry, Pioneer. And you know, usually when we look at the other metrics, we see Akala, we see Moonbeam, Parallel, Kitsugi, Bifrost. But here we have different leaders. We have Kala with $7.6 million, A-Star with $3.7 million, and Bit.Country Pioneer with $3.1 million in fees collected. And this is an interesting metric. It's an interesting technical indicator because it shows you where value is actually accruing. So this is also something to keep in mind. Okay, now we're switching gears. We're moving into the DeFi section. And so the DeFi section has a few different metrics. This is how much TVL is there on the DEX, how much is going on the DEX. Then we have lending protocols and we have liquid staking. So TVL, different chains here. So everyone is fairly staying in their lane. We have a clear leader, which is Moonbeam. And then we have a little bit of a competition, so to say, going on between Parallel and Moonbeam. And then here on the right side of the chart, we can actually see that at the end of the quarter, Akala is shooting out a little bit. So we're going to see in a second what was the reason for that, but that is the TVL share. And then other chains you can see is here Moon River, Karura, but these are on Kusama. Okay, now we're going into the top DEXs, the top decentralized exchanges. And what we can see here is that ArfSwap, Curve, and StellarSwap have been fighting for the first place. So each of them have been at the first place at some point. At some point in time, Curve dropped out of the race. You can see it going down here. So basically going whoop. But there is some activity and sort of like a roughly equal TVL share going on between ArfSwap and StellarSwap. So StellarSwap is the biggest DEX, as to my knowledge, on Moonbeam, and then ArfSwap is the biggest DEX on the A-Star network. So both of these ecosystems having big DEXs. How much value is there actually locked? Let's take a look at this. So on Parachains, we can see up to $100 million locked, and at the moment it's like around 40 to $50 million. On the decentralized exchanges, we could see a competition of up to 25 million, and at the moment we are around the area of, I don't know, 15-16 million dollars here, $10 million here. So this is the range of what we're working with at the moment. Yeah, well, Kusama shows a similar image, but the biggest competitors here are not A-Star and Moonbeam. But it's actually Solarbeam and Karura. So Solarbeam lives on Moon River. It's the biggest exchange on Moon River. And then we have Karura as its own chain. Yeah. Another interesting thing here is that Polkadot is not a constant number if you follow it, but it's also fairly stable. So not really sure what's going on here with the reporting. Yeah. Moving on to lending protocols, you can now see the answer of what is actually going on with Akala. So Akala has been like ranging here. Then there was a drop for some reason. When was that? That was in March. And then there was a rise again. So shortly ahead of the quarter, more value has been deposited into the lending protocol. And what does it mean? Lending protocol on Akala actually means minting AUSD, minting the stable coin from Akala. And so there has been a deposit going on, maybe to recollateralize, maybe to mint more AUSD, but this is the explanation of why the TVL for Akala has been growing again. Yeah, and then we see liquid staking on Polkadot and Kusama with a little bit of a difference. So on Polkadot, the leaders are Lido and Moonbeam, Akala, and then we have Parallel, and then we have Bifrost. While when we look at Kusama, we actually see that Bifrost is here the leader, then we have Karura, and then we have Lido and Moonriver. So it's a little bit a different focus, a little bit different strength on the different networks on who is performing the most in terms of liquid staking. So before I close down the DeFi section, this is the last bit here. So this is stable coins, and I think the most important thing here to take away is the yellow line here, which is the holder count. So on Kusama we had 370 holders, now we have 470 holders. On Polkadot with 170 holders, and now we have 320 holders. So the number is slowly increasing, but in my opinion it's still not enough how much value there is actually here in USDT. We need more stable coins, USDC, maybe decentralized stable coins to gain traction, to make the next big steps forward here. Okay, and then there is one chart here from the NFT section that I want to point out, and that is what are the biggest marketplaces in terms of NFTs. And what we can see here is that the Singular marketplace is the clear leader, so this is the pink area here, and it dominates basically every day. Maybe there are like a handful of days where Singular is not in the lead, and then on the second place we have Tofu on A-Star, and you could add the different Tofus together, then you have a little bit of a different picture on some days, but I guess overall we have very clear lead for Singular and the Remark team. Yeah, and this concludes my reading of the report today. You have a few other charts that you can look at. One last bit that I want to share with you is the WASM and Ink smart contracts. So this was a surprise for me. WASM and Ink smart contracts are upcoming. I remember since I joined the ecosystem, I've been looking forward to see, but from the numbers of what is going on here, I get a really good and confident feeling. So we see 2,500 smart contracts deployed, and most of that goes for the Aleph 0 testnet, so 1,800. And on Rococo, we see 700 smart contracts deployed. And you can just see on Aleph 0, there's new smart contracts coming in basically every day. This is an ongoing thing. Of course, it's a testnet, so developers are developing test contracts, but it's still a nice sign of activity going on. And I'm really curious to see what kinds of smart contracts you're going to get. Okay, but this now concludes my reading of the report today. Big props to the Subwallet and Dotinsights team. There's a really great report, and yeah, I really love that I can get this side of the ecosystem, not just have to trust on the marketing, but can see actual numbers, and then you can see a few surprises here and stuff that you can continue to research. If you like reports like these, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And there is also a data-driven report on net flows that I've been recently producing. It basically tells you where is DOT and KSM going, which parachains are gaining, which parachains are losing. So if you're interested in that, this is also something that you can see here on the end screen. And with that, I wish you all the best. Goodbye.